Hello, friends. Welcome to Story Time with Miss Dina. Today we're going to read the story, The Mitten. We read this story a few days ago, and you may remember a boy named Nicky who wanted his grandmother to knit him a pair of mittens that were white as snow. Who can tell me what happens to one of Nicky's mittens? What animals crawl into Nicky's mitten? And what happens to the mitten? Let's reread the story to find out in case you forgot. Once there was a boy named Nicky who wanted his mittens made from wool as white as snow. At first, his grandmother Baba did not want to knit white mittens. Why do you think she didn't want to knit him white mittens? Right. If you drop one in the snow, she warned, you'll never find it. But Nicky wanted snow white mittens, and finally, Baba made them. She gave in. After she finished, she said, when you come home, first I will look to see if you are safe and sound, but then I will look to see if you still have your snow white mittens. So off Nicky went, and it wasn't long until one of his new mittens dropped in the snow and was left behind. Do you think he noticed his mitten being left behind? A mole, tired from tunneling along, discovered the mitten and burrowed inside. It was cozy and warm and just the right size, so he decided to stay. Why do you think the mole crawled into the mitten? What animal's gonna crawl into the mitten next? If you said rabbit, you are correct. A snowshoe rabbit came hopping by. He stopped for a moment to admire his winter coat. It was then that he saw the mitten, and he wiggled in, feet first. The mole didn't think there was room for both of them, but when he saw the rabbit's big kickers, he moved over. Who's going to come next? Next, a hedgehog came snuffling along. Having spent the day looking under the wet leaves for things to eat, he decided to move into the mitten and warm himself. The mole and the rabbit were bumped and jostled, but not being ones to argue with someone covered with prickles, they made room. Why do you think they let the hedgehog in? I would have too. As soon as the hedgehog disappeared into the mitten, a big owl, attracted by the commotion, swooped down. When he decided to move in also, the mole, the rabbit, and the hedgehog grumbled. What does that word grumbled mean? Yes. Kind of make a grumbling sound with your throat. But when they saw the owl's glinty talons, they quickly let him in. Up through the snow appeared a badger. He eyed the mitten and began to climb in. The mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, and the owl were not pleased. There was no room left, but when they saw his diggers, they gave him the thumb. So there was just a little bit of room in the thumb. It started snowing, but the animals were snug in the mitten. A waft of warm steam rose in the air. A fox trotting by stopped to investigate. Just the sight of the cozy mitten made him feel drowsy. The fox poked his muzzle in. Then the mole, the rabbit, the hedgehog, the owl, and the badger saw his shiny teeth. They gave the fox lots of room. Why do you think they let the fox in? A great bear lumbered by. He spied the mitten all plumped up. Not being one to be left out in the cold, he began to nose his way in. The animals were packed in as tightly as could be, but what animal would argue with a bear? The mitten swelled and stretched. It was pulled and bulged to many times its size, but Baba's good knitting held fast. How did the bear fit into the mitten? Along came a meadow mouse, no bigger than an acorn. She wriggled into the one space left and made herself comfortable on top of the great bear's nose. The bear, tickled by the mouse's whiskers, gave an enormous sneeze. Achoo! The force of the sneeze shot the mitten up into the air and scattered the animals in all directions. So what made all the animals pop out of the mitten? Yes, the bear's sneeze. On his way home, Nicky saw a white shape in the distance. It was the lost mitten silhouetted against the blue sky. What does silhouetted mean? Yes, it means he could see the outline of the mitten against the blue sky. As he ran to catch his snow white mitten, he saw Baba's face in the window. First, she looked to see if he was safe and sound, and then she saw that he still had his new mittens. The end. Even though the mitten is small enough to fit Nicky's hand, it also had enough room for 8 animals to fit inside. How do you think all those animals fit inside the mitten? Oh, I see. Nicky seems to enjoy playing outside, but later in the story he looks surprised and worried. What do you think he noticed? How do you think he feels? How did Nicky find his mitten? How long do you think he looked for it? So much happens to Nicky's mitten when he drops it in the snow. I wonder if Nicky knows all the animals that were in his mitten. I hope you enjoyed the second reading of the Mitten. Thanks for watching.